Hey everyone, John here! And when we all make jokes about Super Mario Bros. 2 actually being a little-known Japanese game called Doki Doki Panic, and we all burst into laughter, there's gotta be like a bunch of 10-year-olds just standing in the corner going, yeah, I totally knew that. Because we just assume it's common knowledge, but people born before our time must be learning at some point for the first time. And so it just occurred to me, has this been done before? Is Super Mario Bros. 2 an isolated situation? And it turns out, no, this has happened before, in the reverse. So Doki Doki Panic, a licensed property, became a Nintendo property in the West, to get rid of any licensing. But Balloon Kid, this game here, only released in America, Europe, and Australia. This never got a Japanese release up until this, which we covered in the previous video. Check it out, in the year 2000, a color version released in Japan. However, that's not the entire story, as 2 years after Balloon Kid, there actually was a Japanese release way before the color version. And it's this. Hello Kitty. They turned Balloon Kid into Hello Kitty. Balloon Kid. Kind of a classic. Balloon Kid came out for the Game Boy 6 years after the arcade original in 1990. It's very much based on the balloon trip mode from the core game, except rather than just being a score chaser, this is a full-on single-player adventure. You make your way through these predetermined and linear levels, avoiding all these obstacles, jumping on bosses' heads. It's a pretty neat game. Definitely starts very slow and easy, but it ramps up into something actually quite special. A very cool gimmick is the B button makes you drop your balloons and become an actual platforming character. You can run around, you can jump, and you can pump your balloons back up to take to the sky. So there's this synergy of on-ground platforming and in-the-air flying and dodging, and it was a really cool evolution for Balloon Fight. The game definitely takes too long to actually get to those segments that really demand it, but once it gets there, this game really takes off. Oh dear. Well, it gets more Balloon Fight elements as it goes on, like those little sparks you've got to avoid, and the enemies that make that catchy tune. Gotta love that sound. Also, I really like how pumping up your balloons is exactly the same mechanics that the enemies did in the original Balloon Fight. That's a cool little reference there. So I consider this quite a synonymous game with the original Game Boy. It's one of those games that I think about when I think of the system. And so it's kind of wild that Japan didn't get this exact game until 10 years later on the Nintendo Power Flash carts just sold through those kiosks, and they ended up with an exclusive color version that we never got. What a weird game. But it gets weirder! This is Hello Kitty World. It released 2 years after Balloon Kid in 1992, and this is Balloon Kid. Listen to the title screen. It's the exact same. They took Balloon Kid, and they reskinned it with Hello Kitty sprites, but I'm not entirely sure if reskinned is the right word, because they didn't just take the original game and change things up. No, they remade it for a different system. I don't understand why you would do that. Why wouldn't you just change the Game Boy sprites and just ship it back on the Game Boy? Why remake it for the Famicom? It's definitely very confusing, but it does make this version even more interesting. Oh, Mario made this? The original Balloon Kid was a collaboration between Nintendo R&D 1 and Pax Softnica, and Pax took the reins for this version here. It very much is the same game, although we are lacking some options here. The Game Boy version would have the main game, a versus multiplayer mode, and Balloon Trip. Balloon Trip pretty much just being what the original NES Balloon Trip was as well. Hello Kitty does not have that. Instead, you just get the option between 1 and 2 players. If you pick 2 players, then you take turns Super Mario Bros. Style, using Kitty's twin sister, Mimi. But unlike Mario, you are working together. You're progressing the exact same playthrough. So don't worry about repeating huge chunks, because this is quite a slow game, and that would be pretty tedious. This mode essentially just gives you more lives, and that's the way that I played it, because the final levels do get pretty tricky. It's also worth noting that Balloon Fight GB, the color version of Balloon Kid, had a save feature and a world map, and that's not featured here. If you die a few times, you get some continues, and then ultimately you go back to the title screen and do the entire thing again, just like the original Balloon Kid. And right off the bat, I think the biggest change with Hello Kitty World is the lack of screen crunch. You can see so much more, especially vertically. This is a bit strange considering the original was made for the Game Boy, but at many times it feels like you're just kind of confined and not seeing everything you need to see. I mean, like, check this out. I don't know how you're meant to react to that, and it's so much nicer in Hello Kitty World. It really is just much more pleasant to play it this way, and the visuals are a lot nicer too. Even when playing Balloon Kid in color, there's a few inconsistencies that I don't love, like these trees here. Where's your stump? Why do you just float above the grass? Trees must come to an end. They cannot just float. I don't like this. But in Hello Kitty World, the trees are grounded in the ground, and I am no longer ranting about trees. I will say there are some times where the screen crunch does make sense on the Game Boy, like hiding secrets, so sometimes you've got to explore the game to find these bonus rooms, whereas in Hello Kitty World, you can just kind of see them. It's kind of funny how the Game Boy icon's been changed to a strawberry. The bonus rooms are probably the areas that have been changed the most. They've put these walls here to match the Game Boy's aspect ratio, and what's funny about these is you can very easily bounce off them, making these rooms much, much easier. They also made these pipes green in the Game Boy Color version of Balloon Kid, and they look just like Mario pipes. Whereas in Hello Kitty World, they don't really look a thing like Mario pipes. And that's a bit more consistent with the rest of the Balloon Fight series. They're not green in any other game apart from the color version of Balloon Kid. But speaking of odd, this is the only place in the game where the music is different. And take a listen to this a moment. So this is the standard Game Boy Balloon Kid. That's pretty much just the Balloon Fight theme, right? Well, now listen to the Hello Kitty version of this area. That's definitely not the Balloon Fight theme, so what is going on here? Was that too far associated with the Balloon Fight IP? Well, I don't know, because other songs pretty much use riffs of that song, but what's even stranger is this song comes from another Nintendo game. Can you guess what it is? No, you're wrong. It's not whatever you just said it was. It is the Nintendo World Championships NES cartridge. Listen! They reused it for Hello Kitty World. I don't understand, viewer. Otherwise, these are pretty much exactly the same. Outside of the bonus rooms, the music is the same. The enemies are still from Balloon Fight. The bosses are the exact same. And yes, this game does have bosses. They're actually pretty cool. You sort of have to let go of the balloons above their head to jump on them. You can try jumping on some of them, but it's a bit risky. So it's kind of this mix of flying and platforming. It's cool. There are a few level design changes, like in Balloon Kid, these blimps in the background say fight, whereas in Hello Kitty, they just remind you that you are a kitty. They're not trying to make Hello Kitty violent, but I think they should. I also noticed that some aspects of level design are actually a little bit different. Like here in Balloon Kid, you're expected to do quite a specific platforming jump, whereas in Hello Kitty, they've changed it to just running across these gaps. And this is pretty cool because they reuse this in a future level, so it's just kind of teaching you that you can do this. Neat. Hello Kitty World is just kind of a nicer version of Balloon Kid. It looks better, it plays better, the lack of screen crunch makes level design much more tolerable. It's definitely still much easier in the first half, and it's even easier than the Game Boy version here, but it does start to ignite some challenge as the game goes on. And there were areas in the Game Boy original that were actually really quite tough, and they're still tough in Hello Kitty, but in a much more fair way. Technically, this isn't the full Balloon Kid game because it is lacking some modes, but for the core adventure, I would definitely recommend playing Hello Kitty World over Balloon Kid. After this, the Balloon Fight series would get a little bit strange. In 2007, we got Tingle's Balloon Fight, a Japan-only Club Nintendo exclusive, and it's excellent. It's just Balloon Fight with modern sprite visuals. They look really, really good. And the big gimmick of this version is spanning 2 screens, so you get an excellent vertical version of Balloon Fight. It has all the modes, there's Balloon Fight and Balloon Trip, and there's even a 4-player mode. This is the only Balloon Fight to have 4 players. It's radical. What a cool game. And in Nintendo Land, we got Balloon Trip, and this is also a really cool version. I love the art style, I love the time of day shifting, and instead of just flapping up and down with balloons, use the touchscreen to sort of blow gusts of wind in a very similar way to Lost Winds on WiiWare. Am I relating to anyone right now? I hope so. But this is just a really cool and very versatile version of Balloon Trip. It's kind of funny how the Balloon Trip mode has sort of become the core of the series, being the basis of Balloon Kid coming back in Nintendo Land. The actual Balloon Fight mode, the name of the series, is in fewer entries than Balloon Trip. It's crazy. But then, no more Balloon Fight. Weird series. Completely by accident, I have ended up collecting the entire Balloon Fight series. We've got the first game on NES, we've got the sequel on Game Boy, we've got the Japan exclusive color version in Nintendo Power, we've got the Hello Kitty reskin of Balloon Kid, we've got Tingle's Balloon Fight, and we have the Nintendo Land mini game. Do I love Balloon Fight? I mean, I think it's pretty good. It's definitely one of the more underrated of the classic Nintendo properties, but I wouldn't say... Am I a mega fan? Maybe I am. Well, that's something to think about. Anyway, what a wild little game this is. They took Balloon Kid, a Game Boy game, and put it on the Famicom, which isn't a Game Boy. It's bizarre to reskin something for an entirely different platform and rebuild it from scratch, rather than just changing a few sprites. But, honestly, I would say that this is the best way to play Balloon Kid. It's just so fun to play without all the screen crunch, and it's just more comfortable playing on a Famicom. It definitely lacks a few features like the Balloon Trip mode, but this is still a very cool little collectible and an interesting part of Nintendo history. Just noticed that rainbow doesn't have all the colours of the rainbow in it. Is that a Hello Kitty thing? Do they not have all the colours in their rainbows? I don't know. I definitely need to brush up on my Hello Kitty knowledge. But anyway, thank you for watching, everybody, and I will catch you another time. Bye, everyone.